Alright guys, let's talk about some smartphone deals. Let's look at some recent price cuts we've got in the used refurbished marketplace. You guys know I'm always searching and looking them up. So one of the things that actually surprised me is that the S22 Ultra is going for around 650 bucks in the used refurbished marketplace. I was really surprised by that because I thought it would be a few more months into the year until we saw that sort of price drop, but I was really surprised to see them trading on Amazon for that. And these are USA prices, guys. And the S22 Ultra is an awesome flagship. Its original price was around $1,200, but currently it's sitting between 750 and 650 now. But the prices at 650, they go pretty fast. So if you see them for 650, I would definitely just buy it. It's a really good deal. So I made my update video on this phone like a year later, not too long ago, if you guys want to check that out in more detail. But this phone is fantastic. I was using it as my daily driver as well too, and I was just really impressed with the performance overall. The phone's design is just really beautiful to look at. Now, even though I'm not a fan of the super boxy, sort of design here, like I said, only because I have smaller hands, it's sort of difficult to, or kind of sharp on the edges, and it's just sort of difficult to hold because it's kind of wide. But other than that, it's a really beautiful looking phone here. The full premium glass and metal IP68, the built-in S Pen. Like I said, you get this for 650. It's a really good deal. The screen is probably my favorite thing about this phone. It's a dynamic AMOLED display at HDR10 plus, 120 Hz with 1750 nits peak brightness, extremely bright outdoors at 6.8 inches, 1440p display, 540 ppi, top-notch, beautiful display. It has the sort of boxy design, which means that it just feels like more similar to a TV. So it's just a beautiful experience when watching content. Samsung again making some of the best displays. Now this phone has gotten even smoother with Android 13 One UI 5.1. Animations and everything are definitely smoother. It just feels more fluid and fast. The base model is 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. Overall, it's just been a blazing fast phone when it comes to bouncing in and out of applications, gaming, whatever you're doing on this phone. It just feels super buttery smooth. So absolutely love how polished One UI has gotten over the years. This phone also does have all of your specs that you could really want as far as additional features. Samsung desktop support is an awesome thing to have. Stereo speakers on here are actually not my favorite thing about the phone. Samsung did recently improve on it with the S23, but the stereo speakers are just kind of, in my opinion, below average. They're just not loud, doesn't have a lot of bass. That's my only thing about this phone. The in-display fingerprint sensor works great, very fast. You can take advantage of face unlock as well too. And like I said, you got the S Pen, which works awesome if you're into digital artwork, or you just want to use the stylus, right, to navigate. This phone still has top-notch cameras. So basically, it's not a big difference from the S23 Ultra. It still has the top tier camera in here, 108 megapixel lens, 10 megapixel periscope telephoto, 10x optical zoom, 10 megapixel telephoto lens, 3 times optical zoom, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and then this one shoots in 8K24 with a 40 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 60. It's got the crazy 100 times zoom, and I actually took a picture of the moon with this phone, and it came out really nice. It's just a really cool feature to have, to be able to zoom in really far, but just not the 100 times zoom. And really the 10 times zoom on here is absolutely amazing. This phone takes some of the best zoom shots in any phone, in my opinion. It's just really nice. I think even 30 times zoom looks really awesome. So if you're at sporting events or anything like that, this is such an awesome phone to have with you. Now, battery life on the S22 Ultra is pretty decent, 5,000 milliamp battery. Now, Samsung made a massive leap with the S23 Ultra. This phone can get me around 6 hours screen on time, which is not bad at all. It's actually technically a full day. And then you have 45-watt charging on here, which is pretty decently fast with wireless and reverse wireless charging. So overall, this is an excellent buy for anybody considering getting this phone and used refurbished marketplace. Now next is the Asus Zenfone 9. I've been waiting for this phone to make a dramatic price cut, but it's literally one of the best compact phones, so it hasn't made that big of a drop in price. When I first got it, when it first came out, got it for around 800 bucks. Now it's sitting at around 650, or 700. It's like 650, 700, so not a massive drop. But it's just an awesome device. Like, this is just amazing compact flagship. You have on here aluminum frame. This actually has a plastic back, but I like the plastic back because it's a textured back and it just feels really nice. Nothing about this phone feels cheap, so it still has that premium feel to it. It's IP68 dust and water resistant, very easy to hold. It has a very really nice feel in the hands. That's one thing that I really like. It's got a super AMOLED display, 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1100 nits peak brightness, and it's a 5.9-inch display. So anybody with smaller hands, this phone is extremely easy to hold. So you won't be straining your hand or having to use two hands. You can use this with one hand pretty comfortable. And it's 1080p 445 for the PPI, punch hole on the left hand side. I just think the overall display experience and the overall just feel of the phone is just really awesome. I absolutely love the way it looks and how it feels in the hand. This phone, Android 13, Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus chip on here, 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 gigs of RAM. They do have higher configurations as well too that you can go up to. This phone is buttery smooth. It's pretty much running a sort of like a stock version of Android. Asus throws in a couple little things, but it's kind of like stock Android, and it's just a very smooth experience. I absolutely love it. It just feels extremely fluid and smooth. And the Snapdragon processor on here, the 8 Gen 1, is just awesome. It's very fast, and again, this is a phone that you can play games on and pretty much do anything on, and it's just a very fast phone, and it actually doesn't heat up as much as you would think. So this phone actually stays relatively cool for the most part compared to some other Snapdragon phones. So this phone also has something very cool. It actually still has a headphone jack, which is pretty crazy. So you can't really find a lot of flagships with a headphone jack. So if you're somebody that's a diehard headphone jack lover, this phone does have it. It's very awesome. Not only that, but the stereo speakers on here are absolutely insane for this size device. They sound really loud bass, just excellent sounding, very full sounding speakers. That's one of the things that I love about this phone. Fingerprint scanner also, this is another one. Fingerprint scanner is side mounted, absolutely awesome. That's my favorite implementation. It just feels extremely natural getting into this phone as well too. So absolutely love a lot of things about this phone. I think the cameras are top notch on here too. This phone did actually really well in the blind smartphone test as well too, from MKBHD. 50 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 8K video 24 frames, and then 12 megapixel selfie shoots in 4K 30. And it's an absolutely beast of a camera phone. Like I said, the only thing it's sort of lacking is there's no telephoto lens on here, but if you can get past that, I think this phone has absolutely great photo taking ability. It just looks really awesome. Good dynamic range, good image processing, pretty good video, good low light. I thought the photos were pretty good on this device. So not only that, but it actually gets better. This phone has a 4300 milliamp battery, 30-watt charging. Guys, this phone has awesome battery life. It's absolutely insane. And I'm talking about at least 2 days battery life for me. If you're a light user, 2 days battery life. Even if you're a heavier kind of user, gaming and stuff, you still get a full day battery life out of this size phone. Is actually pretty impressive. So this is something that I absolutely love. This is an awesome phone to consider. All right, next is the Pixel 6 Pro. This phone is absolutely insane. It's trending around 322 to 268 for Verizon locked version as well too. So this phone is pretty cheap now, and it's absolutely incredible considering the fact that this phone literally has one of the best cameras that you can get in a smartphone still today. Absolutely insane. This phone has still a really nice design, aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant. Has that beautiful pixel design that we all know love with the camera bar. Just looks really sweet. So this phone has an LTPO AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz HDR10 plus at 6.7 inches. It's a full 1440p 512 for the PPI. Absolutely beautiful display. And this phone actually still feels pretty comfortable even for a big phone. It's not as boxy. So I do like that. And like I said, the display experience is really nice on here. Very beautiful display. Great colors, super sharp. And you got the punch hole in the middle. Now, what you'll really like about this phone is that It's running pure stock Android. That's one of the selling points. So this phone is just buttery smooth when it comes to animations. It just feels extremely fluid. Not only that, but when Google releases Android 14, you'll be one of the first people to actually get the update. You'll be one of the first people to be able to run the betas and all that stuff. So definitely, guys, if you're into just the pure Google experience, you'll really like this phone. All right, so you do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM. Believe it or not, this phone is pretty fast. It has the original Google Tensor chip, and it still performs really well. Like I said, with a few updates, this phone is running fantastically. Like I said, the Google Tensor chip, I dropped the gaming test. It does pretty decent with games. Like, I think the overall casual gamer will really like this phone. I was able to play PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, anything you throw at it, it does a pretty good job. So yeah, is it going to be as good as the Snapdragon phones when it comes to just raw power? No, but this phone does do a good job, I think, for the casual gamer. Playing at HDR Extreme, it still looks very smooth. I had no issues with any games on here. All right, so this phone does have some pretty nice sounding stereo speakers, pretty good bass quality on here as well too. It just overall sounds really full, and of course you have under the display fingerprint sensor. Now the under the display fingerprint sensor, it works. It's an optical one, so basically you have to apply a little bit of pressure to it. But once you get the hang of it, like I said, it's not as fast as the Samsung ones. But like I said, this one you apply a little bit of pressure. It's just something you got to get the hang of, but it's not bad by any means. Now, the only thing I didn't like about this phone's biometrics is that there's no face unlock. Now, they did add that with the Pixel 7 Pro, but it's not here on the 6 Pro. Alright, so this phone, the selling point is really the cameras. 50 megapixel standard, 48 megapixel telephoto, does 4x optical zoom, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60, and then you have a 11.1 ultra wide selfie cam that also shoots in 4K 30. This phone still takes some of the best stills in any smartphone, in my opinion. This phone just takes excellent shots. Like, for me personally, if I'm going to go somewhere and I know I'm going to take a lot of photos, I'm always going to bring my Pixel device because I just like the way that the image processing looks. I think it just does a great job with the night mode shots as well too. Like I said, the telephoto is pretty solid. Overall, the cameras and just Google's image processing is just awesome here. Everything just looks so nice, and I just absolutely love the colors that it does for skin tones as well too. Video is kind of okay on this phone. It's not bad, but I think Samsung and Apple, they still do better video just in general. Google, that's something that Google needs to work on. But like I said, the video experience for, I think, the average person, if you're out, on a sunny day or whatever, it's going to take pretty good video, right? I even film a lot of my shorts, YouTube shorts, with the Pixel 7 Pro. So the video on Pixel devices, they're really not that bad. All right, so lastly, the 5,000 milliamp battery on here. It does a pretty good job. I'm able to squeeze around 6 hours of screen on time out of this phone as well too. 23-watt charging, and you also have 23-watt wireless and reverse wireless charging is on here as well too. Overall, the Pixel 6 Pro is a fantastic phone. Definitely check this one out. All right, next is the iPhone 13 mini, and this is such an awesome phone, and my mom actually really likes this phone. I actually gave her the one that I had, and it's just an awesome device. You can pick it up for $450, $500. If you like smaller phones, this is, again, a really nice choice. Aluminum frame, glass back, it's IP68 dust and water resistant. Very easy to hold. One of the smallest screens that you can get in a flagship right now. 5.4 inches, the XDR OLED Retina display. It's got HDR10, 1200 nits peak brightness, 1080p, 476 for the PPI. This is very easy to hold. So if 5.9 inches was too big, this definitely, you could definitely one-hand this. All right, we gotta do a pause for that, but all right, what was that? Oh yeah, so we have the Apple A15 chip on here as well too. And it's a blazing fast phone, guys. When it comes to performance, you can literally play anything. It's buttery smooth. There's nothing that this phone can't do. And it's going to be fast for a very long time as well too. You got 128 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM on here as well. Stereo speakers are pretty loud for a device of this size. Great bass quality, has really good full sound. And of course, you got your all Face ID, all that good stuff is on here. But one of the highlights with this phone is that image quality is still top notch again for this price point. 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel ultra wide. You guys can see the shots here. Shoots in 4K 60 as well too. 12 megapixel selfie cam also shoots in 4K 60. You're getting, flagship quality photos with the iPhone for sure, and some awesome video as well too. Now, this phone, believe it or not, has pretty good battery life. Now, it's got a smaller 2,438 milliamp hour battery, but thanks to the chip and just iOS optimization, this phone gets actually excellent battery life. Check out my PUBG drain test. This phone was able to go, I think, around like 5, almost 6 hours, something like that, playing PUBG. It was really impressive for this size phone. You also have wireless and reverse wireless charging, not reverse wireless, but the MagSafe charging on here as well too. And it's a fantastic device for anybody looking for a small flagship. All right, lastly, and I think honestly the best phone on the list, the Galaxy S21 Ultra. You can pick up for $400. It's an absolutely fantastic choice, guys. It still has a very beautiful design. Some would even argue it looks better than the newer phones. Aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant. This phone does have stylus support, guys. So if you were worried like, oh, I want to use a stylus with this phone, you can actually use a stylus. It is compatible. You just have to buy the case and the pen. Now this phone also has a dynamic AMOLED display, 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1500 nits peak brightness, 6.8 inches, 1440p, 515 for the PPI. This is display. I actually prefer this display because it's not as boxy. It's still big and beautiful, but like I said, for a phone this size, it's just easier to hold. So even for me, like this phone is like 10 times more comfortable to hold. So that's one thing I really liked about this phone. This phone also has Android 13, One UI 5.1. Still very fast, very snappy. It has a Snapdragon 888 processor. The only thing about this chip is that when you're doing like intense stuff for a long period of time, video recording, gaming for a few hours, it can get a little bit warmer than I would like. Check out the PUBG drain test that I did. It does get a little bit warm now. It hasn't ever like started crashing or glitching or anything like that. But yeah, it does kind of get warm, but most people have a case on it, so they might not notice. But yeah, this phone can get a little bit warm. It's got 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM on here. Stereo speakers on here sound great, very full, good bass. And then you have the under the display fingerprint sensor and all of the additional features basically you have on the newer phones, Samsung desktop support, all that good stuff. Not only that, but this phone also gets 5 years of security patches when it's done with its major OS updates. So this phone will have a very long lifespan. Now, the cameras on this phone are still top-notch cameras. I think the cameras are still pretty good. Just check out my S21 Ultra versus the S23. The pictures to me look almost the same. You can tell a slight difference, but this still takes awesome photos. It still has the 108 megapixel standard, 10 megapixel periscope telephoto, it does the 10x optical, then another telephoto lens, 10 megapixel, does 3x optical, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 8K 24, 40 megapixel selfie cam that does 4K 60. It's still going to take some top tier flagship quality photos. Like I said, it looked pretty similar to the S22 and the S23 Ultra. Also, the zoom is still excellent on this phone as well too. 10 times zoom, amazing. You can still take pictures of the moon and all that good stuff. So it's still a fantastic camera, in my opinion. So I just think it's just great for the money that you're spending here. 5,000 milliamp battery, 25 watt wired charging, wireless and reverse wireless charging. The battery on here is pretty decent. 6 hours of screen on time again is what I can squeeze out of this phone, and I'm gonna do another battery drain test just using it as regular for you guys. But 6 hours screen on time, technically a full day, so it definitely can get you through a full day. But like I said, this phone, if you sort of like use it a little bit more intense, it can die on you a little bit. But overall, my experience has been pretty good with this phone. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.